Ghosts of the Deep, an incredible lore-filled dungeon that is honestly some of the better content that Bungie has put out in a while. While not as new and shiny as it once was, it's still a fun to run through this one. And since I'm collecting these emblems like Infinity Stones, it's time to jump into the solo flawless. After selecting my sorely abused and underused hunter, I dove right into what would be several hours of my life. I'm not getting back. Going and knowing that I have no respect for my time and self-worth, I am again doing something that is meant for 3 people. But I have the urge to return to Daddy Lance and tell him that the resurrection of the Taken King being stopped by a lone guardian feels like an accolade reserved for the best of the best. Plus, I get to flex that sweet emblem, know what I'm saying? Entering an area I never really got to play in, but looks sick as hell, it's time to enter the first encounter, which all I gotta do is disrupt a hive ritual. To do this, it should be easy. We clap a Shrek, follow his stink lines to one area, then follow a stink trail after absolutely dunking on everything. Rinse and repeat until you find a lucent hive. Clap his cheeks, return back to the statues, murder a wizard, and then use some of Savathun's drugs to dunk a buff into an invisible statue. Rinse and repeat 4 times, and we're done. Or, one would think. Turns out, I'm a gumball, because I die to a moth here, and a group of wizards here that I chose to dive headfirst into, another wizard who was actually American sniper Chris Kyle, and another cluster of crap that I don't even know what's going on here. But, come on, look at the projectiles and particles all over the screen. I definitely deserve to die here. But after so long and enough dunking, even someone like me who lacks a few wrinkles in their brain can pass through this encounter. After some tilts and realizing how bad I am at this game, I threw out this shotgun for one that's way better. With encounter 1 out of the way, as they say, it's time to drown in the deep. This next section is some hardcore parkour that I don't think I'll ever get tired of how stunning it is. First up, we're dropping into the depths of the arcology. After clapping some hive cheeks, we have a lot of walking to do here. Delving into the deep to me is something that is not only gorgeous but also terrifying. One thing I'm sure is that none of you know how terrifying I think the ocean is, and also space. It causes a sheer level of existential dread that every time I play through this section, it reminds me of how I'll never play Subnautica. And I gotta say, this area does so much better than deep dives because it really nails how far down we're going here. Also, quick shower thought. How the hell can Guardians not swim regularly, but we have gear that somehow lets us enter a literal liquid methane ocean on Titan? Hear me out. I'm no chemist, physicist, nor space enthusiast. I'm just some loser playing Destiny. But methane, or liquid methane per se, has about half the density of water. Wouldn't that mean the amount of force required to push through a literal sea of methane would be significantly higher? Just a shower thought. Side note, I'm not actually that smart, and my knowledge on this topic extends to a few seconds worth of Googling, but if someone knows how this would play out in real life, let me know, that'd be sweet. I know it's a video game filled with space magic and plot armor, but I'm super curious to know how this would work. After descending more, and a little more, I finally hit the seafloor, which immediately makes an incredible transition. Holding the wall on the left leads me to not only the secret chest, but also a path that I can ignore most of the enemies as well, leading me to safe travel. And if I can run away from danger, I will 100% of the time. Why fight when you can run faster? After a little bit more jumping and more seafloor traversal, which, to be honest, goes on a little bit long, but hey, it's a pretty environment, we finally get over to the Lucent Hive ship. Almost done with the jumping puzzle, I know. It was a fun walk every single time. Believe me, The memories of the Lucent Hive ships will always bring me back to a campaign that I enjoyed way more than Lightfall. Making my way through the rest of the Lucent Hive ship, nostalgia be damned, I find myself at the first boss, Ecthar, Shield of Savathun.
Here comes the boy.
Now that there's actually a boss to contend with that has a lot of health for one player to deal with, I swapped over to my favorite chainsaw, the Lament. Now hear me out, if you haven't gotten your hands on this thing, you are really missing out, because saying this sword hits like a truck would be an understatement. This thing hits like a living train that's all hopped up on performance enhancers that also has a million arms with chainsaws on them. And the game plan for Ecthar should be easy as well. First, kill some knights, wreck another Shrek, take some more Savathussi drugs, and look at some symbols. Remember them, then dive underwater while running away from a boss and using this map to know where the symbols are, because I'm too lazy to remember these simple things. After that, destroy some wizards, dunk their buffs in the proper receptacle, spawning a knight, prompting the big scary man to come back upstairs. Take a dump on another knight, get another buff that lets you pierce through the shield, and then do the hunter super big yeet. Then finally go to town with Lament, ripping and tearing until it is done. Repeat until Ecthar dies. Should be easy, right? Turns out, yet again, not quite, because not only am I a goober, but I also found out something about myself. I may have severe short-term memory loss, and most of my deaths are because I'm literally touching the wrong symbols because I'm dumb. Like, really dumb. Another failed run came from me not paying attention and just dying to an acolyte. That felt great, not gonna lie. And the worst part about dying here, though, was the beautiful but very long walk back that eventually turned into pain after doing it over and over again. And I genuinely had no one else to blame but me, because my brain was a little too small. Even though my bones were shaking, I decided I should be working with some care and thought, especially when my biggest enemy was my short-term memory. So, I came up with some symbol names I could repeat to myself like a madman, just to remember the symbols, and now the final definitive callouts for Hive symbols are now sandwich over sandwich, sandwich on a table, normal spider, line spider, dot table, turret, pokeball, and vexhead. Calling these anything else is now heresy. Also, huge shoutouts to the boss chasing you during the underwater section. This gives me true terror knowing that there's a man ready to waffle me at a moment's notice, while I slowly flee in terror knowing that I'm gonna get my cheeks clapped if I don't keep running. I mean, look at the terror in this gameplay right here. You can feel the crisis in my head. And then ripping and tearing through this man's health bar like the god gamer that I am, Ecthar finally falls, and there's one more thing I have to do. One final thing keeps me from getting that sweet, sweet emblem, know what I'm saying? The last walking bit that stands between me and that sweet emblem, I mean the resurrection of the Taken King, is in fact a long hallway. I took the easy way out and equipped Wishender. Words cannot describe how anxious I feel whenever I'm at the last part of a solo flawless run. One wrong jump and I gotta do it all again. So, being careful this time, I make my way through the final hallway with an extremely slow and agonizing pace. Each shot perfect, each jump calculated until I reach the end, making my way to the final encounter. At this point, my hands were shaking, and for the first time in a long time, I continued to sit upright in my gaming chair, rather than sit like the goblin I am, and I continued my way through this nightmare of a dungeon. After some time thinking about what I should run, I pre-prepped this time, and remembered that the wizard flies around, like a lot, and I knew I needed a rocket with tracking, and then rummaged through the cesspool known as my vault for anything that would do what I wanted, and then I remembered. There is a rocket launcher. Unlike any other with tracking, it synergizes with my secondary of choice, so that I could use surge mods for more than just the damage phase. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you one of God's greatest gifts to me that I forgot I had. Ascendancy. This tracking rocket came with explosive light and impulse amplifier and was the exact one I knew I was going to carry through during this slog of a next encounter. And now only one thing is standing between me and that sweet, sweet emblem. Simua Nakuru. Samua Nakuru. Samura Nakuru. So here's the game plan. Eat more Savathusi drugs to find circles around Oryx's corpse. Kill a guy with a sword while standing in said circles. Then look through some more circles that get made to create the Taken King symbols 3 times. Then head off to 3 different side rooms, wreck a Titan, a Warlock, and even a fellow Hunter who chose to chill with the Hive. Come back to the middle, deposit a buff in the respective dunk locations based on symbols over where scary Hive people were. Pop the shield with one of Bungie's greatest gifts to the world, Arbalist, then go to town while running around to pick up heavy ammo, at the same time while dodging other Hive, trying to ruin my day. Rinse and repeat until the wizard bites the dust. Sounds easy, but good lord, there is so much visual stimulus in this room and in the others. I'll be damned if I didn't have some moments where my butt cheeks didn't clench so hard I could have recreated the Hope Diamond out of fear of losing the run at this point. I found that other than the unbelievable amount of health this boss has, I mean seriously, like the literal final god of pain pales in comparison. Either way, I find that my strategy is safe and effective unless I kill myself because of a goober move like forgetting to line up the Taken King symbol and forcing myself to wipe because of the vestige mechanic. Everything was working out on the second try, though, and it actually all went super well. I was safe and not dying, and in fact, this encounter had my least amount of deaths, including the first encounter. And I even managed to do this encounter in 7 damage phases, which should have been 6 if one of my phases didn't go like this. Yeah, after watching that one back, I made sure to point out all of my mistakes so you guys know exactly what not to do. But there's probably more that I didn't identify, so if there is, feel free to rail me for it in the comments section. Anyway, after 5 more grueling damage phases that I will spare all of you the time and day, I finally make it to the end, completely freaking out. I 100% forgot about the shield I had to crack on her, so I whip out Arbalist and do that real quick. With her health bar so low, just a few more rockets would do it and the Hunter Super, and with one final rocket, she's done. I've never sprinted so hard over to the ghost, knowing that it was inches within my grasp, crushing the ghost, the hive disappearing, everything was completed. All of the trackers and all of the achievements for solo flawlessing the dungeon, all done. Laid out right then and there. And that's everything said and done. For the rest of the video, I think I'm going to do it unscripted, just kind of my thoughts on the dungeon and everything. And I do have to say, I think that this is really the best dungeon that Bungie's put in the game. You know, unlike Duality, this dungeon works. Unlike Spire, this dungeon actually requires you to do things. And overall, in terms of a solo flawless, this is the most fun. I actually had to sit upright in my gaming chair and sit down and focus, which is not something Destiny makes you do a whole lot. So that was really cool. I do think that some things in the dungeon did go a little long. For example, I think whenever I made a mistake and had to walk back all the way to Ekthar, that went a little bit long. But at this point, and with my light level being at 1320, 5-6 damage phases on Ekthar is not bad. And then there's also the last boss, which I totally cannot pronounce that one's name. I think 6 to 7 isn't that bad. Sure, it's a gruesome amount of health that you have to chew through, and we don't live in the, well, Starfire Protocol days anymore where it would have been pretty easy. But it was not bad. And all in all, it really was the most fun I've had doing a solo flawless dungeon run. Anyway, I had a ton of fun making this video. The solo flawless was more fun than ever. I think I'm going to do it on the other 2 classes. And if anyone wants to see that, I'll make a video out of it, sure. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and y'all have a wonderful rest of your day.